As you learn about the narcissistic pattern, it's also wise to reflect on the much healthier alternatives. Now, below you're going to find a link to my new extensive course called Ready, Set, Connect. It addresses both the mindset and the skills involved in gratifying relationships, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. Okay, I'm going to talk to you as a therapist today, one who has been through many sessions with individuals who struggle with strong narcissistic tendencies. And the question that I know that is on the mind of so many of you is, can narcissists choose not to be narcissistic? And I know that there are times when you insinuate that the answer to that question is, well, they ought to be able to choose. For example, how many times have you thought to yourself, what is it going to take to get through to this person? The implication is somebody ought to be able to get through to them. Or you might think to yourself, why is this person being so dense? Or you told me that you were going to get better, so it's not happening. When are you going to do it? Or why don't you just listen for once? When you go into those kinds of thoughts and express those kind of questions, the insinuation is, surely you, that narcissist over there, can choose to be something other than narcissistic. And so I want us to ask the question today, is that possible for narcissists to choose not to be so narcissistic? Now, on one level, we're going to say yes, and then we're going to say, well, not really, maybe. And then we're going to even go so far as to say no. And let me see if I can give you an idea of the progression of where I'm going in my thinking on that. When I would be in counseling with individuals in my office, there would be all sorts of themes that I would watch for. For example, one of the things I'm watching for pretty quickly as people start talking to me about who they are and how they react to the world in front of them is the theme of control. And when I find that individuals are overbearing and too controlling and they are too agenda driven, that's one of the themes that we're going to be zeroing in on. And frankly, there would be times when a narcissistic individual might make some adjustments there. It's like, okay, if I come on too strong, then that's not going to get me what I want. Or a second thing that or another thing I should say that I would watch for in the counseling is, why are you so contrarian? What is it about differentness that can bother you so much? And is it possible for you to learn how to adjust your ways of responding so that you're not quite so abrasive? And at times, some of the narcissistic individuals might pull back or make a few adjustments here and there. Same thing with respect to anger. That's another thing that I would watch for. What do you do with your anger? You can tell a lot about a person's maturity level by watching the way they manage their anger. What's a more mature way of managing anger? And sometimes they can make adjustments there. Or the same thing with respect to their defensiveness. That's another thing that I would watch for. Why do you feel such a strong need to be defensive? What's behind that? What fear does that represent? And sometimes these individuals might have an intellectual understanding of that. Or, what are you going to do with people that are just not compatible with you? Maybe you don't like them. Maybe they don't like you. And how are you going to manage that? In therapy, those are the kinds of questions and topics that eventually will come to the fore. And then in addition to all of that, what we do is we'll take the topics of that nature, the patterns that they're in, and then tie them to an understanding of their personal history. How are these kinds of things that I just mentioned trained in you as a child or in your adult influences? What are some of the healthy influences you've been exposed to and some of the unhealthy influences you've been exposed to, whether it's within your family or your peer group or culturally or through experiences of trauma, things like that. That's what therapy is all about. And I like to teach people to learn to read behind the scenes in their behaviors relative to all of those kinds of topics. And so that they can move forward when problematic and difficult circumstances come along. And the more they're able to do so, then they're able to establish boundaries, Boundaries begins with having a good definition of yourself and having self-care and learning how to maintain lifestyle practices that are reasonable. That's what we look at. And when narcissists might come into the counseling office, those are the kind of themes and those are the kind of patterns that we examine. And when I say yes, narcissists can choose not to be so narcissistic, what I mean is they can realize, okay, there's some things in life that work well and some things in life that don't work well. Maybe I do need to take a look at that. Now, here's where I go into the direction of, a bit skepticism or pessimism. When I say yes, narcissists can choose not to be narcissistic, there are a couple of different ways that you can adjust. Number one, you can adjust your skill set. Number two, you can adjust your mindset. Okay, and there's a huge distinction. And by the way, skill set versus mindset. Guess which one the narcissist focuses on? They focus on the skill set. As far they may think to themselves, well, there's certain skills that might get me somewhere that I want to go. And so if I can adjust my skills, in other words, if I have to, strategize my anger better or learn how to be less overbearing or stubborn in the way that I'm controlling, then I'll adjust my skill set some. And on a scale of 1 to 100, they may move a few points away from hardcore narcissism. They may shave off 4 or 5 points, if you will, if we can put it in that kind of way. But notice that when you talk about adjusting your skill set, you're focusing on the external. And you've heard me say in other videos, narcissists focus on the external, not the internal. And so narcissists can learn to adjust some of their abrasiveness. Sometimes they just don't even care enough to come into counseling. But even so, we have to go down and ask, but what about your mindset? In order for true healthy choices to be made for adjustment, in order for true change to happen in a personality, you've got to go into your mindset. And when I'm talking about going into your mindset, what I'm looking at there are another two thoughts, and that is adjusting of the mindset requires you to examine carefully your essence. And it's one of the things I would say to young therapists who are just coming up, and I'm trying to give them some coaching and all. It's real hard to coach up essence. But when you look at your essence, you're looking at the things that define you from the inside out. What it is that brings you meaning, what kind of ingredients that you want to be defining of you, love, for example, or peace, or respect, those kind of things. And so to make true change, you have to focus on your essence. And then you have to utilize insight. And a lot of individuals, they can talk about, some of the adjustments they need to make on the outside. But when we talk about insight, we're talking about more than just intellectualization. We're talking about examining who you are at a very thoughtful, pensive kind of way where you're able to attach your wisdom and your knowledge to certain events and make some true lifestyle adjustments. Now, one of the things that I have concluded is that, especially relative to that term insight, I think that sometimes psychological insight is a gift that some people have and some people just simply don't have. An analogy I would use, you probably know some individuals in your life, maybe you are someone who is quite gifted at mathematics. And they can take any kind of mathematical equation, starting with the addition tables all the way up to quantum physics, and they can figure it out. And then some people, it's like, I can't do that. Now, that same person who's not skilled at math might be skilled at music, or they might be real good at tinkering with their hands, or they might have the gift of cooking or something like that, or they love botany and gardening and things like that. There are various gifts that we are blessed with that we can hold on to. Well, I actually happen to think that insight is one of those gifts. There are some people that when I would talk with them in my counseling office with respect to the insights that would go into all of the different topics that I've mentioned here, they would walk out of my office and make me look like a genius, because it's like, oh yeah, I've just been waiting for somebody to help me pull it together, and their skills and insight are quite good and quite deep and quite pragmatic. And then there'd be some other individuals that would come into my office and I would talk about the same kind of topics. And when they leave, it's like, you're having a hard time catching on, aren't you? And they may change for a while, but then when push comes to shove, they go straight back into the same malfunctioning kinds of ways as they ever did, and the insight just doesn't happen. So the question is, can narcissists choose to not be narcissistic? Every now and then, typically if there's been a big calamity or crisis in a narcissist's life, they may just get to the point of saying, something's got to give. I've got to change. I need to make some serious adjustments in who I am and my essence and all that goes with that. And every now and then, a narcissist might be able to make that adjustment. The percentage is very low, just being real honest. The rest might try to change some of the skills in their lifestyle, but they don't go into that deeper change in mindset. And that being the case, we just have to realize that some individuals are going to have that capability and some are not. Most of the time with narcissists, the adjustments they make are of the surface variety only. And it's not really likely that it's going to be life-altering. Like I say, every now and then you might be surprised. So all of that said, make your adjustments to the narcissist with those kind of thoughts in mind. When you try to plead your case, you don't want to work so hard to get that other person to understand that you yourself gets pulled into some old narcissistic patterns. So make sure that you monitor yourself and you use your insight to not only adjust your skill set, but your mindset. And if the narcissist joins you, wouldn't that be wonderful? But if not, you'll still be a better person. I hope that videos such as this can give you some good awareness of what we're talking about when we talk about surviving narcissism. And if you've not already hit that subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. And the notification bell that goes with it will keep more coming in your direction. If you have a need for therapy, and I know that many times when you're thinking about topics like this, it spurs the thought that says, I could use someone that would help me unpack this. I'm so pleased that I have a sponsor who can help you in that regard. Below, we have a link to the BetterHelp people that will help you with online therapy. There's a whole host of licensed professional therapists that can assist you in that. And if that's the case, I would encourage you to go through the link and investigate the possibilities there. In addition, I have my courses, which are meant to be therapeutic. Many videos with each course and teaching documents that go with it, questions that will walk you through. Ready, Set, Connect is about having good connection skills. And then This Is Me, about establishing healthy boundaries, free to be, finding yourself despite the controllers in your life. In addition, we have my books. We have a new podcast that's coming along soon and other resources that are below. I really want to thank you for letting me be a part of your journey. And when we talk about can that narcissist change, we don't want to be so focused on that we forget, well, I've got my own work I need to do too. So make sure you keep that in mind. I want you to be a person that's going to be steady and respectful in the way that you deal with other individuals and especially yourself. Because when that's the case, then it positions you to be a person of peace.